Okay, so we're going to start public comment. Each participant has 1 minute, I'm sorry. The first public comment will come from Anthony Acosta.
Hello, how are you doing?
Fine, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to make a comment related to the Bridge program. It's vital importance to the community. If we go ahead and think of the data quest results, we see that African American and Latinx individuals go to college at a much higher rate through this program, but it's not just the program itself, it's also the support that it provides, having people there on a day-to-day basis. My daughter has anxiety related to school and some learning disabilities, and the Bridge program continuously goes above and beyond, talking to teachers, smoothing the way for her to really engage in school and hopefully to one day go to college. It's just of vital importance having that staff there, and it can make the difference really between someone going to college and not going to college, because having to go meet the other Bridge members on a daily basis motivates her to go, because she doesn't want to let the cohort down as well, and the program down. And the instructors there are just fabulous in ensuring that she's engaged and hopefully working towards a future in college. And so,
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Gloria,
Next person, Gloria Farisi.
Gloria cannot make it today.
Okay, thank you. Dominique Tuller or Tully? Dominique. Go ahead, Dominique. Okay, the next person is Maria Kong.
Hi there. I'm also Maria Owaduni, so I could just cede my other minute to someone else. But yes. So I'm also a Bridge parent, and my son is in the 11th grade. I also wanted to echo just the vital importance of Bridge as you're thinking about these funding cuts that are so difficult. But really, Bridge has proven through all of the data, as the past parent had mentioned, just the data on various indicators that it's proven to be successful, that it works at Berkeley High, whether it's college readiness, eligibility, graduation rates, attendance. I mean, we need to avoid cuts to a program that proves it really works in this high school for African American and Latinx students. And not only does it work, but I really feel like it's fiscally wise to invest in this program on multiple levels. It's proven that it works on multiple levels, and it has a track record of success, and it clearly has a deep interest of students and families through its long wait list. And I can tell you through personal experience that my kid has been in Bridge and accesses it every day, and they're there every day, all day. And some of these other programs, he wouldn't access because they're on a Saturday, or he's not going to go to a separate tutoring and a separate mental health facility. Like, he knows these counselors, and he's developed this relationship. Like, he's going to go only to Bridge, and if he didn't go there, I'm not sure that he would access these other resources.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you.
Hi there. Yes, hi. Sorry, I was having trouble accessing
Go ahead.
Devices. So, yes. So I am everything the parents before me spoke to. I agree 100%. I can tell you that my child has been in the program since his freshman year, and I'm just going to be really brutally honest. But for the Bridge program, my child would not be at BHS. I would have taken him out, and it not only provided support academically, but emotionally. And what I have to say about that deserves way more than a minute, but the data is there, and the experience of each child that's in Bridge is there, and the kids that have graduated from Berkeley High and that have gone on to the UC schools and the other state schools, you can see it when you're there, how important a program like Bridge is to Berkeley High.
Thank you, Dominique.
Okay, thank you.
Maria Kong? Maria?
Yes,
Leilani?
hi, I already spoke, so I can just cede my minute. Thank you. Sorry, I've somehow got double counted. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Leilani, Daniel? Leilani?
Hi, this is Miss Betty. Leilani and Amin could not get out of class, so Abraham will speak in their place.
Okay, go ahead, Abraham.
Okay, hold on just a second.
Hi, hello. My name is Abraham Kamate. I'm a 10th grader, upcoming 11th grader here at Berkeley High. I'm also an African American student. I have a little cousin coming up here in the fall as a 9th grade class, and it'd be really disappointing to have Rise cut off because I've had a lot of older siblings come through Rise throughout the previous years, and so my mom and people would love to have Rise continue on for my little cousin and other family members coming up to the school.
Thank you. Miss Betty?
Hi. Yes, Miss Betty, just kind of confirming where we are. So far, we did cut our college tours. We used to have 4-day-long college tours in Southern California, visiting 3 to 4 schools, colleges a day. We cut our free days. That means the days that you don't have school, like Malcolm X, we would have lunch and a movie. We try to keep the kids together, socially engaged in a supervised situation. All of those things have been cut. Our next cut that we're looking at is we just intook 49 rising 9th graders, and a lot of the siblings are in that class. We're looking at cutting that entire class. So no summer program, no transition program, and we would have no 9th graders next year.
Thank you, Miss Betty. Daniel?
Hi, so instead of cutting Bridge or Rise, which it seems like everybody loves, we should cut the contracts with these staffing companies. And I'm going to push back on things I heard last week about how we can't just poach their staff, but actually the Attorney General says we can and is aggressively going after companies for no poach clauses in contracts, which according to the Attorney General are illegal as per California's law against non-competes. Also, it's been bothering me the entire time. Why is Thomas Sowell on in a picture on all of these? If that guy had his way, education would be completely privatized. So just airing that since it's bothering me. But yeah,
Okay, Daniel.
not people.
Thank you. So that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Vivian, and thank you to everyone who is here with us. We are going to go ahead and get started. Ms. Vivian, can you just do a scroll and just confirm that all of our SBAC members are here, as we are going to be asking them to engage in a voting-like activity today. And so actually, Ms. Vivian, go ahead and do a roll call for me, please. I'll put in the chat, Matt, while Ms. Vivian is getting ready for roll call. And so again, we're doing roll call. We're looking for the attendance and presence of those who are voting members of SBAC or their alternates. And we'll take a second to do that. And I'll put the presentation deck in the chat. Ms. Vivian, do you have what you need to call roll?
I'm sorry, I was muted.
It's okay.
PTA president or PTA voter?
Here.
Okay.
Alternate for Rita, Diana Soy.
Pino, Vicki Davis, Nicole Chabot?
Here. Here.
Okay. Pack, Natasha or Jessica?
It's Jesse. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the other Natasha.
DLAC? Is anyone here from DLAC? Dan Lindheim, I saw you. Log on. Jenny Morgan, Emily Nathan. Lisa Loeb, Kelly Rivera, Kareem Malayas, Rebecca Levinson,
Here.
Natasha, Beatrice, Jay,
Beatriz here.
Mildred, Sean, Yazid, Frank,
I'm here. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. I'm here.
Yazid here.
Frank,
Here.
Sean, Matt Meyer, Regina,
So I'm here. At some point I'm gonna leave, so depending when the voting is, Regina will take over for me. Also, I believe Sarah and Lisa are on their way, so we should have 3 voting members.
okay. Lisa, Stephen Collins,
Here.
Renee Molina,
Here.
Jules, and then we have staff, Kathy, Jill, Pauline, Anika, Trish, Samantha, Emily, and Jennifer Chanowski. And that's it. There's a few people not here for voting.
Okay, thank you for that. Ms. Vivian, we're going to go ahead and advance to the next slide. Bringing you greetings on behalf of myself, the proud superintendent of Berkeley and our Board of Education. Again, the representative for SBAC is Director Jennifer Chanowski, who may or may not be present, but definitely always is listening in to the conversations that we're having. Also making sure that our SBAC members remember that we have a number of staff, next slide, who are here with us on this call, who are either here to co-present or to be able to answer questions that you might place in the chat. While I'm speaking about the chat, and before I answer the question, I recognize the hand that has been raised. I want to just go over and remind folks of protocols. The public comment time of this meeting has been closed. And so now the meeting discussion, conversations, and interactions are restricted to those members who are acknowledged members, voting members of SBAC, as well as BUSD staff. And so that being said, we do ask that if you are here as members of the public or audience members that you engage just by listening, but that you do not engage at all with the chat, because the chat will be reserved for those who are voting members, and reminding you voting members to use the chat just to talk about topics that are currently being discussed on the agenda or on the slide presentation. Similarly, when it is time for SBAC members to vote, we will be sending you a form, and we again are saying to all of our folks who are participants in our meeting this afternoon to not vote and to not weigh in on the vote in any fashion, as the vote is restricted to those who are SBAC members. We did take roll, and so we will only be acknowledging those folks who are SBAC members or their alternates going forward. And so with that, I'm believing that Sean Jackson might be an alternate, Ms. Vivian. Is that accurate?
Yeah, she's a voting member.
Okay. Hi, Ms. Sean. How are you?
Hello. Good. I just wanted to let you know that I was here.
We're glad that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to go to the next slide and remind not so much our members, because you all know this by now, but those who are members of the public and in the audience, that the purpose of this committee really is to be thought and accountability partners for me and our staff as we work to create and present a balanced budget to our Board of Education, which will be happening later this next month in June. That this is an advisory committee, and so even when there are times that they are quote unquote voting, those votes are to represent recommendations or advice that they're giving me to inform the final budget, again, that we're going to be presenting to the board in June. And so this night's meeting will be really focused on our SBAC members advancing different proposals and recommendations that they would like me to consider as I create a balanced budget, but it will also be an opportunity for them to rank or tier or prioritize those proposals as well. Ms. Vivian, please make sure you see the chat from Natasha that's been noted in terms of voting responsibilities. With that, and going to our next slide, we are always going to ground ourselves, even when time is tight, in our shared mission, and that is to enable and inspire our diverse student body to achieve academic excellence and make positive contributions to the world. I think it's important to ground ourselves in this shared mission and our 4 E's, perhaps particularly in times of challenging conversations, because even as we think about making reductions or changes to our budget and or resource allocation, we do so consistently committed to making this mission real and true for every single one of our students. And so as we engage in what we've all decided are pretty challenging conversations and some rigorous debates In some instances, we're all doing so, believing that every student has the right to be enabled and inspired, that every student should be in a context where the conditions are set for them to achieve their academic excellence, and that all of our students are positioned and poised to make positive contributions to the world, and the work that we do help facilitate that, both in the immediate and in the long term. Next slide, please. And so really quickly want to go over this afternoon's agenda. We have just finished our welcoming moves, member roll call, and our public comments. We are going to have a quick update on the governor's budget. We provided the update at the last meeting. We have a slightly updated update for today. And then we're going to move into getting towards our budget balancing target. We're going to review in advance. We're going to review the proposals from phase 1 to phase 4 that SBAC has advanced in previous meetings. We're going to also revisit proposals from phase 1 and phase 4 that SBAC had questions about. We presented some proposals phase 5 at the last meeting, so we're going to give you an opportunity to do a straw poll on those, as well as a straw poll for those outstanding proposals that you had questions about. And then we are going to engage in the main activity of this afternoon, which is what we're calling tiered bucketing. We'll be organizing the proposals into buckets to reflect the different priority and or severity level. And we'll have more information about that as we get closer. We did send out a communication to SBAC that allows you to get an opportunity, though it was a short and brief opportunity, to review the various proposals and to think about the buckets and where you might place, which bucket you might place each proposal in. So we do hope that you receive that email. But if you were not able to do so in advance, it's okay, because we will have time for you to think about it before casting your vote, if you will, this afternoon. And then finally, we're going to move into our closing moves, as well as next steps, which might be inclusive of us planning an additional SBAC meeting even after this one, which is supposed to be our last SBAC meeting. So with that, I'm going to ask that we go ahead and advance to the next slide. And again, wanted to just provide a quick update on our governor's budget. Last week, the governor's budget was released, and that release looked like a series of communications. Press releases, if you will. We got information from an organization called School Services that a lot of school districts work with, as well as a CSBA, California School Board, and school boards and administrators, and their synthesis and their summary of what they believe the governor's budget means and what it says. Some of the things that were highlighted from those summaries are what's here on the screen. Because of tariffs and economic uncertainty, there has been resulted in a $16 billion drop in state revenues, leading to an estimated $12 billion deficit in the coming 25-26 fiscal year. That is not specific to schools, school districts, or education. It's specific to the governor's budget as a whole, but it gives us some implications as to why things might fall out with regard to education. The May revise maintains that the state's commitment to allocating additional ongoing funding to Prop 98, known as rebenching, to reflect the full implementation of universal TK is still going to happen. The LCFF will receive the 2.3% COLA, which when combined with changes in attendance will result in an increase of approximately $2.1 billion in funding. Student support and professional development discretionary Black grant will be granted. You might recall that some meetings ago, we came to you all with the information about a grant to the tune of about $3 million for Berkeley in particular. We were told to not score that grant. We did not score that grant, hence the hard work that we've been doing in collaboration with you all. But we now have information that that grant will in fact happen. We are still waiting to know exactly what that means in terms of Berkeley's budget and what the specific dollar amount Berkeley will receive is. So with that particular Black grant, there has been a slight reduction in the amount of the grant from 1.8 billion to 1.7 billion, but it does maintain the intent that it may be used to address rising costs, as well as a set of priorities that I did not outline for you here, because again, we're going to come back to you for more information. It's just a quick update. Next slide, please. What's next is what we feel is the most important, and that's for us, again, to attend a webinar next week, early next week, where we'll get more detail about all these various components of the governor's budget. We'll have an opportunity to think about and understand the implications of these changes on BUSD's budget, and then ultimately, what are the implications and impacts on our budget balancing target. which we are indeed hoping that it will be an opportunity for us to reduce that target of 7.6, 7.8 million ongoing. And so that is still forthcoming. But given that we do not have those specifics, we are still going to engage with you this afternoon with the target as set. Remembering you all that even after this May revise, if you will, and after we submit our budget to the board for approval, the governor's final budget does not come out until June 2025, and it might be necessary for us to do what's called a 45-day revise. So even after the approval by the board, there's still some level of uncertainty until we get that final budget in June. Next slide, please. We've been really trying to ground ourselves as an SBAC in this concept of not having solutions, but really thinking about trade-offs. There's so many great and amazing things that we do here in Berkeley, and we do great and amazing things for a lot of good reasons. And as we think about having to do so with tighter resources, we are going to have to ask ourselves, and you've been doing a good job of asking us and asking each other, what are the trade-offs? What do we stop doing? What do we do less of? What might we do differently? Again, still committed to realizing our mission and those 4 E's. And so I don't want folks to get distracted by the picture or the person who said it, though I do appreciate that feedback, and really just walk away with the sentiment that as we engage in these conversations, we are very much aware that there's no easy solutions, no quick fixes, but everything that we talk about is about a trade-off. I think the way we said it last year was you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And so keeping that spirit in mind as we go on to the next part of our agenda. So this is just a reminder slide. Again, this was sent to you all last night, and this has been the work that you've been engaged in over the last several months. I cannot believe we've been engaging in this work for several months, but we've done a lot of good work on behalf of the students and the staff of Berkeley. So I'm really proud of the work that we've done together. This is phase 1. And this is showing only those phase 1 proposals from staff that the SBAC advanced. Remember when we talk about the SBAC advancing proposal, what we said was that that means that SBAC, after conversations and engagement with that particular staff proposal, or some of these are actually proposals from SBAC members or community members, that the SBAC wanted to advance that to be amongst the list of proposals that I consider when putting together the final budget to present to the board. And so again, because these are here does not mean that they are actually going to happen. And that, again, I'm saying more so for the members of the audience and public than for the SBAC members, because you already know this. But it does mean that this particular body has said that if we need to make reductions and move towards our target, these are things that they are okay, or maybe even recommend that I consider in putting together that balance packet. So if you see here, they range from a number of strategies. We've talked about strategies in previous meetings, from closing and removing vacancies to consolidating and removing positions, as well as eliminating expenses, and even some cases of us transferring expenses. We're not going to go through these line by line because you know them very well, but wanted to recap and make sure that you see this is the final compilation or list of the phase 1 proposals that you all straw voted to advance. Next slide, please. Similarly, on this slide, what you see here are the proposals that you all advanced in phase 2 and phase 3. What I want to call out here is that for the first time in phase 3, what you're seeing in purple is that we are starting to consider and actually advance some revenue generating ideas. And those are reflected at the bottom with the purple balancing solution. In this case, is increasing transportation for field trip rates, as well as increasing district rental and leasing fees. Outside of that, again, there's more chewing up costs, a couple of removals of vacancies, and then some transferring of expenses. Phase 2 and phase 3. Moving on to phase 4, what you see here, the SBAC advanced 7 proposals, including removing or consolidating positions, some revenue generators, as well as opportunities to true up some program costs. And so there were a number of proposals that came to you. Again, those were the ones that were advanced by SBAC. Next slide. There were some, though, that SBAC needed to have some more information on before deciding to advance them for budget considerations. And those are here. Those for phase 1 include 5 to 10 furlough days for employees earning $125,000 or more. Those also included a reduction, truing up of our program costs for our college readiness and support programs, That also included a balancing or reduction of some of our affinity groups, our targeted group programs to the tune of about $60,000, as well as a restructure of OFI, reducing the OFI specialists by 3.0, those OFI staff that are paid for out of general funds. That was phase 3. I apologize. Phase 1 was the reduction of an HR Tech 1.0. Phase 4, we came to you all with the proposal to reduce an existing partnership, our Science Saturdays, by $35,000. And folks had some questions about that and were uncertain. And then there was a conversation about reducing 2 secondary level counselors for an additional $320,000 of savings. So of the proposals that we brought to you all between phase 1 and phase 4, you can see that there were 7 of them that folks had questions about. A few of them we've actually talked about a couple of times. And so what I'm going to do now is we're going to take about 5 minutes. I'm going to pause because we are going to ask that folks think about, no, we're not going to actually think about it. We're going to ask that folks actually vote or do a straw poll to either advance these things for consideration or not advance these things. And so I'm going to pause for one more time for folks to ask questions. Before opening it up to questions about these particular items, I want to say that the questions really should be about something that we haven't already asked or something that hasn't already been brought to the SBAC, because again, we are going to ask that SBAC does a straw poll to advance these before we're able to then ask SBAC to tier or bucket or prioritize all of the various proposals. I'm going to pause for your hand, Matt, before going on.
So you said this is a time we can ask questions about the ones that need more information. I just want to be clear.
Yep, this is the time. But before I give you that time, you'll be the first one in that time. I just wanted to call out one thing. Wanted to call out the second line for phase 3, which was our truing up of our programs for our college readiness and support for $300,000. We have, over the time that we've been together, as you all know, come back with revisions. Please. I just walked into a closet, everything fell down. We have in previous meetings come back to you all with revisions, right? We might have said, oh, phase 1, we proposed this, and then we came back with, we're going to revise our proposals for phase 1 by making some changes either in the amount to be considered or the proposal itself. We are now, again, at what is likely to be or might be our final meeting. And so we did not come with any revisions to phases, but I do want to call out my own personal response to the college readiness and support. I think I've said it across several meetings. I got a lot of feeling and emotion around it. What we do is we look at services, programs, positions that are kind of directly in our purview with the unrestricted general fund. We know that there's tons of other funds and resource allocation conversations that happen in different places, in our P&O, in our PAC meeting with our LCAP, but also at the site level. What this group has been really focused on is the unrestricted general funds, and sometimes those conversations kind of overlap. We've really been focusing on where we have kind of more direct impacts, or which is directly in our sphere of influence or control. That said, you might not have noticed, but you might have, that I've really struggled with this particular line item because I believe in equity, and I believe that we as a system, both as VUSD and the traditional public school system, are doing something that I don't think the system intended to do. I've said this everywhere and probably to everyone on this call, right? This idea of enabling and inspiring diverse student bodies is not at all what public schools were ever set up to do. And so we're kind of, exercising an act of resistance and revolution every time we try to do it. I'm also really clear, even as superintendent, that there are some areas of significant growth and improvement in terms of who we serve and how we serve all of our babies, making sure that equity, engagement, and excellence is real and true for all of them. And I truly believe that every single one of those college readiness programs that have been discussed over these meetings are valuable programs. I have taken issue with the ways in which I felt that those programs have been pitted against each other. I think I said to you all, it's not for us to decide what's value. If a program serves 15 kids of color or 15 kids who otherwise wouldn't have access to resources in college, then for those 15, that program is valuable. If it serves 100, right, it's valuable. So I had an issue with the pitting against programs. There's different models, and every single one of those programs, I think I said it once to Dan, for every single one of these programs, I can get you a baby or few, or a family that says, if it wasn't for this program, I wouldn't be where I am and I wouldn't be headed where I'm going. I also had a lot of struggle quite honestly, when there was conversations about, well, let's just pick one. I think I said at our last SBAC meeting that I don't think it's okay for kids of color or for kids who are under-resourced or who otherwise are not given opportunities to have space to be affirmed and to grow and to thrive, that we make them pick just one. And so I said even then that I've been in support of all of these programs from jump. That means from the start. For some of y'all, I'm sorry, I got a little comfortable. But from the very beginning, I've been in support of all of these programs. And I was being honest about the fact that we had a big target to move towards. And we had to, look at some things and explore some possibilities within the buckets that we had. And unfortunately, these programs are in our bucket. And so we were considering them. What is not going to be revised on this slide, but what I want you to hear from me now is that I have been and I'm still very committed to, again, not one of these programs, but all three of the programs that have been of discussion, because I've seen firsthand the impact that they have, not just from observing, I do that too, but directly talking to the students and the families, looking at data, right, to see how all of these programs have done amazing things for our students in ways that we have fallen short as a district time and time again. Whether they're in-house people or whether they're partners who are coming in, bringing in services, they're all of benefit. So I'm going to listen to your voices today. I'm going to let you vote. I'm going to let you rank. But more than likely, I'm going to remove this myself. I anticipate there'll be some monies coming in to our district. We were proposing making some reductions in this particular line area of $300,000. And I'm feeling pretty confident that we will find and get $300,000. And if we get and find $300,000, I do not want to cut or reduce any of these programs. Doesn't mean I don't want to restructure. Let me be clear about that, because efficiency is still a thing for me. But in terms of reducing these programs and reducing the resources allocated to these programs, that's not my goal as superintendent. And so I want to make that clear. I'm happy to engage you all in your 1,001 questions about these programs again. But I also want to be mindful of time and let you know that we're probably on the same page. And if we're not, I can hear from you. But I wanted to make that clear because you didn't see that removed from the sheet, because we wanted to stay consistent. But I also need to let you know where my commitment is and what my proposal is. And it's always going to be for equity, but it's also going to be honoring and being honest about the fact that we still have a lot of work to do for the kids that these programs serve. And I think we need to show that by prioritizing, not reducing them when we can. And if we have to reduce them, to do it in the ways that we were trying to, which is just shoring up the program costs. So with that, Matt, I'm going to pause and let you start off, and then I'm going to go to Nicole. We're not going to be here forever, y'all. If you're not clear and satisfied, I'm still going to ask you to straw poll at some point. So just get ready. But I hope that we can answer some questions to get you feeling more efficacious to do your poll on these various proposals. Let's start with you, Matt, and then we're going to go to Nicole.
Great. I'm going to ask all my questions at once so we could be super efficient.
Go.
So what I hear you saying is phase 3 college readiness and support 1.4 million, the 300,000 is, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, you're taking that off the list. Just want to be sure that I understand that correctly.
Yes. I'm taking it off the list, anticipating that we will have funds that could cover that $300,000.
Okay.
Yes.
So my next question is the one below it, targeted groups 0.6 million, of which you say there's a $60,000 consideration. I'm curious about what is the $600,000 that we're talking about here, and what's the $60,000 that you think you can save? So that's my first question. The next one is similar under phase 4 partnerships, $180,000. Because we can't click on these links, I just have no idea which partnerships, who are the partners, what's the reduced investment, what are we not doing? So of that 180, it says 35,000.
Yep.
And then my next question has to do with this. I asked this like 3 times. The reduction of the 2 secondary level counselors. What are we talking about here? Because I see postings for counselors right now. So it's not the restorative justice middle school counselor at Willard. I can tell you what it's not, but I can't tell you what it is.
Copy. So let me answer the first 2, and then I'll defer to Jill and or Sam to answer that third specific one about counselors. So for the targeted groups, those targeted groups are our focal programs primarily. And this group is looking at the African American Success Framework and partnerships that fall under that, which is inclusive of R.T. Fisher as well as Young, Gifted, and Black. And so in terms of the 60,000, what that looks like, and that strategy was really to address some inefficiencies. The plan for the African American Success Framework, as well as the partnership with R.T. Fisher, has always been I do, you do, we do. No, you know what I'm trying to say. The one where it's a gradual release of responsibility, and there's some aspects of the partnership that we can now better move in-house and better facilitate that work on our own after having 2+ years of the partnership. And so that $60,000 of reductions is reflective of that, Matt, is what are those things that we have benefited from the partnership from or with, and now we can bring those in-house. Those would be where those reductions are. Did that answer that question?
So it's hard to know exactly all the things that these organizations do. I'm just thinking about this as we pit it against some ideas, maybe in some other phases.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way to say, well, maybe this should be $200,000 and therefore we cannot have to vote on something in phase 5? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's on its face, sure, right? $60,000, but there's no, I guess when we do if we're going to put them in buckets, I guess.
Exactly. Yes. That's when that will come out. If you feel like you want to make this, well, I'll explain the buckets later, but if this is something that you definitely want to see a reduction in, what we didn't put in the survey for the bucketing, Matt, is like opportunities for comments, but we can record those comments here.
Yeah.
And so if your desire, you being one person of the committee, right, is that we look for additional reductions in that area, that's definitely something that we can consider. Not going to guarantee it, right, but it's something that we can definitely consider. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying I want to necessarily. No, I just yeah, it's just I would like there to be an opportunity if things are pitted against each other in a way to get to that target, to be able to say, well, maybe 60,000 isn't enough of a savings in this thing. If we have the money, great, let's spend it. That's fine. But if we don't, there should be an opportunity, I think, to be able to say, well, there's some stuff that's happening in-house, or there's some stuff we're just not going to do next year. I think that's also possible.
Yes, Emily and Pauline, while we're going through these slides, if it's possible for you to go to the bucketing Google form and add a section for additional comments, that might be where those types of thoughts can be recorded.
Already added, Superintendent.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, Matt, for that question. The other question was around the
partnerships.
180,000. So that was our Super Science Saturdays. We have a partnership that we do with Berkeley Public School Funds, as well as another outside organization that brings those particular programs to our babies. Amazing programs. We went to all of our partners. I think I shared with you all to let them know the situation we were in and to see where there might be some wiggle room. And so in talking to Berkeley Public School Funds, which is the primary facilitator of this particular program series for our babies, they actually came and said, we think we can reduce by 35,000 without serving fewer students, without impacting our staffing. We need some of their staff. We're going to do a little bit more, and we're willing and able to do so, and without impacting the quality of the program. And so this particular line item is not about a reduction in terms of the frequency or the amount of days or the amount of offerings of this program, nor is it a reduction in the number of students who can be served by this program, nor a reduction in quality. It was really this group kind of putting their heads together to be creative, to say, how might we? And they said, we can still do what we're doing with $35,000 less. So that's what that $35,000 reflects. And they were pretty confident in their ability to do so, and are excited to continue to have the program at the rigorous and engaging levels that it is. Secondary level counselors, Jill and Sam.
Yeah, so to be transparent, we're still trying to work on this. We have got a couple of other potential funding sources. So we're trying to see how much we can preserve and move on to other funding sources, which just might be a short-term fix for this particular situation. What we do know, Sam will have better numbers than I do, is that we are looking to reduce by 2, but we have a number of vacancies either from for other reasons that are coming up. And so we still have some capacity to move that around.
Yeah, I realize that everyone will have their job, right? That part's already done. The question is what positions won't be there that are currently there. And what I hear you saying is you don't know yet exactly.
Don't know yet, because there's some positions that in a world of counselors, we have, I think, something like 33 FTE for counselors. and there are a number of different types of counselors that all serve really important purposes. And so having to make this decision about which one to reduce is, to the earlier slide in the presentation, is all going to be about trade-offs. So we're trying to work to see what's the minimum amount of trade-off and impact we could make, recognizing that even if we have alternative funding, it still might be short-term until we can figure out something else. Some of you heard about the fee schedule program that we're going to work to implement next year, which could possibly start generating funds that would count services that our counselors are serving already in their roles to help generate funds. So that could be a potential revenue income. And so if we can find a bridge to maintain our programs, because we might get a more stable funding source that we're going to launch next year, still don't know how much money we can code to that. We'd like to stabilize the staffing. So that's the ultimate goal. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Nicole?
Okay, thank you so much. And first, Superintendent, I really want to thank you for expressing your views. I have great, deep respect for it. And I could go on, but summed up. Thank you. It just, this year is it's a year of terrible choices, and I'm anticipating the next year is probably going to be a little bit of terrible also. So it's a miserable situation. There are a couple line items here, and I think part of, my personal frustration is that we've been just talking about these programs for years, even before your time. And so, it's like, in a year of terrible choices, when are we going to get into the details to try to figure out what is working? Everything we can say, but just getting into the details, right? And as you were saying, that improvement, or the word that you used, I can't remember. But exactly, when is that time? And so, one note is, like, for example, Bridge and Rise are the two programs that I feel like personally understand the best. And one of the main reasons is because they have consistently provided, consistent and transparent information to us. And that helps me understand what they're doing, can engage in that conversation of what works and what doesn't work. And I just don't feel like we have that for a lot of the others. And so I begin to lose a heart and trust in all those things. When questions are asked and they're not answered, I'm not saying, but I don't know where the questions are not being answered, but that's where I start to lose all those elements. And, when I start to lose trust, I start to lose trust for funding, right? So, specifically in Bridge, if we're talking about, I believe in one of the, with the previous slides, we were talking about $300,000 in this bucket, 100,000, for example, in Bridge. My understanding is that will reduce. There is actually an effect on the services they can provide. So it is a reduction in services. We would lose a whole cohort from what is currently in place right now. And we'd lose counseling services, which is, fundamental for them to their infrastructure. So I don't think they can do the same work for that amount of money. That will be cutting into what they can provide. And that makes me very sad about a program that has provided this information over time. So, for example, and the piece that I'm most challenged with is that I feel like there's still three big buckets. And I wish that they were 18 line items. And I want to get to the place where they're 18 line items and not three big buckets. And I understand why they're being proposed as three big buckets. But for example, that Bridge element would be like a 0 for me. It would be, we can't reduce the number of students that program is serving. So it's more of a comment, and I end it with, again, thank you, Superintendent.
I think we agree, and we don't agree on everything you just said, Nicole, but I think what we agree on is my recommendation, what I'm likely going to recommend, of course, is still pending, like what I find out when I go next week, is that there's no reductions in that line item at all. So I hear you, and I hear when people were saying, "Oh, if we do this, then we can't do this." There's oftentimes ways to be more efficient. So I want us to also not get so comfortable with how we do things to think that if we don't do it that exact way, that we can't still achieve the same outcomes and goals. So I want us to be open to the ideas of improved efficiencies and actually probably more effectiveness with a different configuration. That's a separate conversation. And when we do have space and time, I hear you, Nicole, when we have space and time, we can go into that. We really haven't had space and time. We've been meeting every week, and there's still all the work that I and my staff have to do to keep the district running and the PE situation, all these things. And so I appreciate, right, the wanting to go deep. And I also want to go deep. Sometimes it's hard to go deeper when you're also trying to hit some targets and move, right? And so there's that issue with urgency. Sometimes in being urgent and moving quickly, you miss the opportunity to deeply engage and to get those answers. And so no disrespect that you didn't get all the answers that you asked for. We tried to bring you information, and we continue to bring information. And I definitely want to have that conversation. But my thinking right now is that that's not even about, a reduction in service or anything. My goal is to keep these programs whole. I do hear, because you said you said Rise and Bridge. The third one, there's no other ones. It's College Bound, right? And so if you have some specific feedback around College Bound, again, we have that comment section. So when you all go to tier, if you want to tier a certain way or say, yep, we agree with the superintendent, let's not reduce anywhere here, or we don't agree, we want to not reduce here and here, but reduce here for this particular line item, you'll have the space. You have the space to do that. Does that make sense? So I'm saying leave it all alone, right? I'm saying I've seen the data. I'm saying that nobody's more A through G than the other person. I'm saying that nobody has a better college acceptance rates than the other one. I'm saying all the things that I know, right? And so, but if you feel differently, or if you're like, actually, so-and-so didn't respond to me personally, Nicole, I want to put something different, please feel free, all y'all, to use the comments to do so. Okay? Vicky, and then Rebecca, and we're about to close this window. So I want to make sure that there's anyone else who has comments or feels some level of unreadiness, that you could ask your questions so that we could. And if it's time to straw poll and you're like, I still don't have enough, then don't advance it. Like, that's what it is. Just don't advance. So want to make sure you understand you have that power to not do so as well. Vicky?
Yeah, I have two comments. I first want to thank you for your impassioned introduction to not reducing anything in that section. What I'm hoping is that we don't have to reduce anything, but that we look at the efficiencies. I don't disagree that all programs have great outcomes, but they do it at a different cost per student, and they serve students at different amounts. And so being able to find those efficiencies, particularly for the college readiness programs, so that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck, is sort of what I'm hoping for. The other comment I want to make is in respect of the OFI positions. So we have contracts that support the African American Success Framework. However, OFI, the Office of Family Engagement, in particular, manages and case manages many students who would be in a similar focal group. And I feel like some of the contracts that we have, similar to what Matt maybe suggested, could be reduced more by bringing those things in-house. And rather than reducing our OFI staff, as we've talked about earlier with the idea of not contractors, but employees, we have these employees, and 5 of them now have received second pink slips. And although the recommendation's reducing of 3, 5 of them have second pink slips. We could be paying our employees that we already have, that have already been through HR, that are on staff, and have them pick up the duties of that contract. For example, OFI is extremely engaged in doing the Oratorical Fest every year. So we have Young Gifted and Black, and they serve a small group of students, but we're doing something very similar with the Oratorical Fest already through BUSD. So let's expand that and put those resources into an expansion of that program versus using outside contractors. So that's just, I guess, my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Vicky. Put that in the comment section. A point of clarification. That's actually a good example. Oratorical Fest is actually facilitated and planned and coordinated in partnership with OFI, but led primarily by one of our employees, Kamar, who is the manager of African American Success projects. And so, and some of the things when we were talking about that 60,000 and definitely can kind of break that up more, the 60,000 example was things like that. Like, what can we bring in-house and stop asking for extra support and resource from our partners, and what then do we need the partners for? I want to be careful for us to not, though, go too far in the other extreme, that there are some things that we have not done well and right in Berkeley for decades, right? And so we have to be humble at some point to say maybe we don't know how yet, and we need some time to build our capacity. And I believe that is in big part what the African American Success Framework is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a forever thing, and it's supposed to start to do what we're trying to do now. What are those things that we can now do in-house? And then what are some things that we can't? But I do hear a theme. I've heard it from you and from Matt and even from Nicole. And so I want to let you know that I'm hearing it, but please put that in the notes as well if you have any specific ideas about how to move in that direction with some of the things that are here in these proposals. I think, Rebecca, did you go away? Rebecca was.
I did. I think that Vicki and Nicole covered kind of what I was thinking, but I do agree around the contracts. I think this is our opportunity to really ask ourselves, is this giving us as much as we can get? And I would say that our consent education experiences are very useful to be considering right now. We contracted out for years for someone to come in from the outside and help our kids understand those issues. And they weren't successful, right? And we spent a lot of money. And then when we brought it in-house, I can tell you how much more successful it's been because this is somebody who knows the kids and the kids have relationships. So I think that as I'm looking at all of these, including like the Science Saturdays, for example, I just wonder about, are there ways in which we can be putting more, maybe there's a more heavier science focus in Rise and Bridge, and maybe we can absorb some of those pieces there. And I think to Vicki's point about the dollars associated with various programs, I think this is the time to look at that. So I really do hope that we can ask ourselves, could we get out from under these contracts, pay people more when it comes to special ed and other kinds of situations, and take this opportunity to really reimagine.
Yep.
And to step away from, I think, what has been an expensive endeavor for us.
Thank you for that. We need to have a whole contractor session, y'all. We need to have a whole contractor SBAC because I think folks got some single stories about contractors and what they do and why they're needed and why we have them, that I think it'll be a good opportunity for us to address, because there's different reasons for having contractors, and they're not all bad reasons. Some reasons are required. You got to have them. Some things are about our own internal capacity, and some things are to the point that you all are making it just a missed opportunity to really leverage some of the skill set and the folks that we have in our system. So, but I want to make sure we have that conversation that recognizes the complexity and the nuances and not oversimplifies. We'll talk about that, and we're going to talk about, what was the other thing? Just really digging deeper into our various programs. And I would say not even just our college readiness programs, but the many programs that we have in Berkeley to talk about effectiveness and to talk about efficiency. Before we go on to the next comment, we need to move on to voting pretty soon. Rebecca, I want to clarify for you and for the rest of the group that the Phase 4 partnership, $180K, I want to be careful. That's not an external contract. What that is a partnership that we have with the Warner Group, as well as Berkeley Public School Funds. And those dollars are used to pay staff and to get the materials to run that program. So those are our BUSD staff, many of whom are our classified staff that we're giving opportunities to, learn and grow. Some of them might want to go into being classroom teachers, et cetera. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear. I know it says partnerships, but I don't want to misrepresent what that is. And so with that, we're going to move on to, I'm going to let Pauline very quickly share Phase 5. Remember, we came to you off with Phase 5 last meeting. We're coming back to you with Phase 5 this meeting, only with the unrestricted general fund parts of Phase 5. And then when this is done, we're going to ask you to straw poll to advance or not. And then we're going to get into the real meat at 5 o'clock, which is the tiering of these various proposals. No problem, Rebecca.
Okay. Oh, I don't have a voice, but I'll try. Sorry. So last week I actually went over these with you guys. I had proposed it at the last meeting, but now we're gonna ask you to actually do a straw poll on these proposals, which include the DSA. We're shifting the funding for a part of an FTE to another fund. And what this is showing is just the impact on the unrestricted general fund. We also talked about a partial VP changing the funding on a one-time basis that will generate $12,000 in savings on a one-time basis. We did talk about the fee-based reimbursement program that we had from ACOE. And I think Matt had made the comment that this, we can make millions. And I think we also had Jessica explain that this was a more conservative approach based on other things that she has seen from other districts. We brought back the idea of doing a district-wide furlough for all staff, less the impact of the, and this says 165, I did not catch that change, but that should have been 125, because remember we had brought a proposal earlier for furlough for people earning over 125. So this again generated more money, but it's on a one-time basis. We also talked about recouping 3 years worth of PG&E bills, 2 years in arrears, and ongoing at $150,000 a year. And that's because the city of Berkeley charges us a tax that legal has gone through and determined that we should not have been charged that tax. We also talked about the need for a new phone system, which is a requirement. Even though the cost is up $300,000, the ongoing impact to the unrestricted general fund is $100,000. We talked about the reduction in the COLA, which is part of the governor's May revise. So this technically is something that we're gonna do because it's part of how we build the budget. But and it's scored here as an expense or as a negative, as a reduction in revenue, as opposed to affecting our target, which is technically where it should have gone. But just for ease and convenience, the $300,000, $100,000 is operational and it's covered by the general fund. The facilities is paying for the infrastructure and the setup of 200. We pay for the ongoing costs, and we've always done that in the unrestricted general fund. Facilities does not pay for operations. I wish it did actually. Anyway, so we talked about the COLA, 143,000, and then this was an additional expense for ongoing expenses for the two-way immersion program. And this is in addition to ongoing expenses that were scored on a restricted funding source. That's the 16,500. Hold on a second. Let me just finish too. And then we were exploring add-ons. We haven't scored it, but this is something that we're actually thinking about. Vicky, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a follow-up on the phone. So I understand that the 100,000 is going to be operational ongoing. Although, is it 100,000 more than what we're currently paying?
It's $100,000. It's an increased cost of $100,000 for this.
And then my second question is the 300,000. That's the implementation cost. Wouldn't that be because we're having to upgrade or put something new in? Wouldn't that be considered maintenance? And don't we have a city tax that covers facility and maintenance that would cover this?
All right, let me back up. This is we're only focusing on the unrestricted general fund, which is why we scored 100.
I thought the 300 was what we're looking at.
No, the columns that I'm focusing you on
are on the right.
The first set of numbers in the block in the in this section here.
Okay.
That's unrestricted general fund, ongoing, and the one beside it is one time.
Okay.
So this first set of numbers is a consideration, and what we're focusing on is the impact on the unrestricted general fund.
Okay.
And we shared this last time, so this should be a refresher. It
Thank
shouldn't
you.
be something new. You're welcome. So this is one area in phase 5. We're looking at quite a like over $800,000, but of that amount, most of this is one time. So whereas that's not the direction we want to go in, we're actually scoring it on a one-time basis. So that's the summary of phase 5.
Thank
So,
you. And we have Matt,
Time for questions?
sir.
Great, just one. So maybe I'm a little bit confused. Last time when we talked about furloughs, I thought you were presenting on, okay, district-wide furlough day, what it means for all employees. So now I see furloughs on here again, but now you're saying this is the idea of $125,000 or more. I'm just trying to understand what it says.
Oh God. All right, hopefully I can clarify. This phase 5 was already presented at the last meeting. It's a refresher. These are not new proposals. What we proposed initially on furloughs were amounts of people earning over $125,000. When we're looking at the cost of one day for the entire district, we're removing those people that were already scored in phase 3 or phase 2. So this is a net impact of the cost of one day, excluding the amounts that we've already scored as a one-time savings in a previous phase.
That makes sense, Matt. So she removed the 125 and above salary earners.
So this is the cost of this. So this proposal idea is for my members and BCCE members and UBA members.
Correct.
For everybody in the district.
Right.
And
So if you were to add the proposal from phase 3 to this proposal, which would be, then you would get the total of what we're looking at for furlough days. But because we already scored all the people above 125 in another item, they weren't added to this same thing. But this would be everybody else who's not in that 125 group.
And Matt, we did clarify at the last meeting that for furloughs of any folks who are in unions, there would need to be some negotiations and conversations. So we were clear with the committee that this is not a guarantee, but that is it would be requiring conversations.
Yeah, I think I have a philosophical problem with a large group voting on something that has to be negotiated. It's I don't know the right way to go about it. I have to think about it. This hasn't come up before. I guess the group can weigh in on what they think, but at the end of the day, the members actually would be voting for this themselves.
Right. Understood. And we try to make it so we know we're also just trying to be transparent with the things that we're thinking about. And there's an opportunity for SBAC to give some input. But yeah, we like you said that it requires some conversations in the same way that when we talked about the personnel commission position, right? We were clear about what it would take to make that happen. So I think the committee is aware of that, and we are for sure. So
right. And I think at the last meeting, Steve, you had said, can we do like a tiered approach to furloughs? We did not change our assumptions right now. We're leaving it at 459. And as Matt says, this does have to be negotiated with the various bargaining groups. Steve, you had an additional question, and Vicky had a question.
Yeah, still on the furloughs. Just to be clear, so this 459 is in addition to the previous one,
right?
But there's overlap though, right? The previous one was making over 125. This one is that
it should have been 125. There's a typo on this, so we backed out the people that we've already scored. So this is and that was 10 days. This is 1 day for the entire district, the dollar impact. And this needs to be negotiated, but we're proposing if we did a 1 day furlough for the entire district, it will not impact teaching and learning because we'd possibly be using a PD day. And this is the dollar that we will score, and it is a one-time approach.
And this, to be clear, does it mean to say this is for people making less than 125, everybody else?
That's for everybody in the district, district-wide,
Oh,
everybody
this
in the
is one
district.
for everybody. Why do we have the 165? What's the significance of the 165?
Lord, because we're backing out the ones, and the 165 is an error. That should be 125.
Okay.
I hope.
So this is in addition to really. This is the cost of one furlough day for the whole district.
Right, and backing out what we scored earlier.
Okay.
For the 125. Vicky.
Yeah, I would just comment maybe rewriting this to say all employees who make less than 125, because it was just 2 minutes ago that I understood that that's what this meant, and I pay attention. So if phase 3 is above 125, this could say all other employees who make less than 125.
Yeah,
and then
okay.
In response to Matt, I would just say that I think our vote is really recommending or not recommending that the district begin negotiations, knowing that this is not a guarantee. But if none of us think that they should even bother negotiating, right? So we're saying yes, try to negotiate, or no, don't try to negotiate. That's how I'm seeing this question posed.
So Natasha, do you want to make your comment? Because I think everybody should hear it.
Oh, yeah, what I just said is actually tag teaming on what he said, which is just a reminder that, of course, the A in SBAC stands for advisory. And so we don't have the power to, make things actually happen, but we do have the power to voice concerns, raise questions, and advise the superintendent and the board. And ultimately, some of these items, of course, do need to be considered under the rubric of negotiations. But just that advisory piece, and I know Matt, you know that, and I just wanted to, in case there are new people on the advisory committee, share that perspective.
Okay, thanks, Natasha. Appreciate it. So, Anika,
Okay, I think we're ready to go to the next slide. Again, friends, it's a lot. We're trying to give you a lot of information. Even though we've been meeting a lot, it's still not enough time for you to get it all. And so if you do not feel comfortable advancing something, just vote that way. That is totally fine, but we appreciate your thoughts and your feedback in any ways that you choose to participate in this straw poll. So with that, we are ready for the straw poll. To be clear, the straw poll is just similar to the previous straw polls you've done, which is to say what proposals you would like to be advanced. If we had to make these reductions, here are the things, Superintendent, that we recommend that you consider of the proposals that were shared with SBAC. The things that you don't advance, you're saying you don't necessarily recommend that I consider them, but doesn't mean they won't be considered to the point that Natasha advisory group. But we do really take your thoughts and your feedback into consideration. And so with that, you're also going to be voting on those phase 1 through 4 items that were outstanding, if you will, the ones you needed more information on. Those were inclusive of the college readiness programs and the affinity groups or focal group population programs, et cetera. Ms. Emily has already shared with our voting members and our alternates the straw poll. Those were shared via email. Ms. Emily, is that correct?
Yes, so I shared the link with the folks I have down for voting for today. So if you've not at this point received a link in your inbox and you think you're voting today, please put it in the chat and I'll make sure that I resend the link. And I did swap in Sarah for Regina for her request.
Thank you for that. So again, if everyone can please check their email, retrieve your straw poll. This is your straw poll only. And so if you did not receive a straw poll and you are a voting member or an alternate, please send a message in the chat and Emily will take care of you. We are going to take maybe about 5 minutes to do the straw poll. There are not that many items. And then I will do a check-in in 5.
Did you say the straw poll got emailed to people? I haven't received it yet.
Sir, so it should have been emailed to you. If you did not receive a straw poll yet, please put your name in the chat and Emily's going to follow up with you, even though we know who you are. So I don't know what happened, but we'll get it to you.
Trying to forget me, I see.
Never that. And so far, I see that there's 3 members who have not received the poll, so I'm assuming that others have. If you've already received it, please go ahead and use the time to mark your preference in terms of advancing or not advancing those items.
So quick question on voting members. So Ms. Beatrice, I have 2 email addresses for you. So it may have gone to your other one because you have 2 on file, but I'll resend it. PTA Council Secretary, I don't have down as a voting member or alternate.
I'm an alternate for Rita Smith.
Apologies. Let me add you to that.
Hi, Di.
And then let me see. Yazid, I sent it to your Berkeley email address, but I can resend that. And then Kareem, I'm not sure I have you down as a voting member, but that may be my mistake.
Kareem is a student rep. The voting member for them is Lisa Loeb, and the alternate is Kelly Rivera. So if they're both absent, I'm not sure. Can Kareem vote on their behalf?
Excuse me. I think that I'm the voting member for the DESIAC committee.
I have Lisa. I was told it was Lisa Vachon.
Can I make a comment? I'm a member of DSEEK also with Kareem, and I was present when we voted Kareem as the primary.
Okay.
And then Lisa is the alternate.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I am sending that now.
Thank you very much.
All right, at this point, I believe I've resent it to anybody who's let me know that they needed it sent. So please ping me again in the chat if it's still not arrived to you.
Received, Matt. Thank you.
Can I triple confirm on the furlough days, the way the item on the straw poll is listed is not what I understood. It still says for employees making less than 125. So it is for 1 furlough day for every employee in the district, right?
It's on the poll twice. The first
Well,
time.
no, 2 different ones.
Yeah.
So there's the
first item is employees above 125. The second item is employees below 125.
But that's not what Pauline clarified when I was asking the question earlier.
That's how I heard her answer. Can someone confirm?
Yeah, that's not what I heard.
Yes, Vicky is correct. So there are 2 items on there. The first item that you're going to see as you're reading through it is a revisit of the earlier phase item that is 10 days for employees making over 125,000. Further down in the poll is the phase 5 question, which is what Pauline showed on the slide. And that is 1 day for all employees in the district. So that amount is going to show the cost of only employees making under 125 because we don't want to double count with the employees making over 125.
All right, I'm still not clear on that, but all right.
There's space at the very end to leave any questions or comments, so feel free to score it as need more information and list the clarifying stuff, and we can send things out too.
So I know some folks were able to start voting before other members. If you can give us a thumbs up if you have completed your voting, it would help us get a sense of our time. Okay, it looks like a good number of members have voted. Some have voted with explosive thumbs. Others have voted with stagnant thumbs, but thumbs are all equal here in the SBAC universe. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that Ms. Vivian advance the slides so that we can prepare you for the next activity. So again, what this is showing is this Pauline's roadmaps. And I say Pauline's roadmap because you all know that I still disagree that this looks anything like a roadmap. However, it's been the consistent format through which Pauline has been showing us the totals for each of the phases. What you see here is the totals of all of the proposals in phases 1 through 5 and adding up to the numbers at the bottom, keep with us being about $0.6 million away from our budget reduction target. There is a typo on this slide, so I will correct that. It should say after phases 1 through 5. Apologies for that. Next slide, please. This slide is just another way to see the information, but this time breaking it down by assigning the dollar amounts, the total amounts for each of our strategies from and across all phases 1 through 5. Reminding folks who are looking that that very bottom rectangle where it says 2.2 million next to the arrow that says revenue generated, that 2.2 is not supposed to be the total of the rectangles above it. It's supposed to be the amount of dollars identified for generated revenue. Next slide, please. And so what we want to prepare you for is an activity that we are going to ask you to do independently after this meeting ends, and that is starting to tier, or what we call bucket, the various proposals. And we're actually going to ask you to tier or bucket all of them, and so I'm going to orient you to the form in just a second. But you did receive last night an email that not only reminded you of the various proposals that have been considered, which we've also recapped this afternoon, but also gave you a sense of what the different buckets are to help you to be able to start thinking about which proposals you'd put in which bucket. There have been some slight changes since then, because we are a district committed to continuous improvement, and because we're building this how do you say, we're building this plane as we fly it. And so appreciate your grace as we've made a couple of subtle changes to this bucketing guide. I'm going to actually go to the next slide and then the slide after that, Ms. Vivian. Thank you. And so what you see here is what you received last night, again, with some slight modifications. What we're asking our SBAC members to do is to be aware of the fact that, again, we have not received our final allocations from the state. Again, we're going to the webinar and the workshop next week to get some really specific information about what the governor's budget looks like, and then what that actually means for Berkeley in general, and then specifically for Berkeley's budget balancing target. And so we know there's a possibility that we will get some additional funding, some additional funds, and then be able to change or lower our target. And so what we need to consider as an advisory group is to think about, if we were to receive additional funding, what things would we want, what things would you recommend that I and my team restore or remove from consideration as a budget balancing strategy. And so we have 5 buckets for you. The first bucket are going to be those things that you feel are really high priority. Those are the things that you say, Inikia, if you get some extra money, pull this off the list immediately, right? Just thinking about the conversations that we've had, not just today, but over the last several meetings, it might be that for some of y'all, those college readiness programs would have been one of those things in bucket 1, just to give you an example. And so when you look at the form that's going to be forthcoming to you all, you're going to see each proposal. And for that proposal, we're going to say, put it in the bucket that you think makes the most sense. Bucket 2 is still important priority things. However, they're not the first set of proposals we want you all, that you want us to restore if we get some more dollars. They're in that next group of, like, we really value this is important. And so if you get some additional money, go ahead and restore those things, or again, remove them from considerations for reductions. I want to point out that for bucket 1 and bucket 2, we're asking you to put no more than $1 million worth of proposals in each of those. And that's because we know people, and we know some of you all. You'll put everything in bucket 1, and there'll be like $7.6 million in bucket 1, and that's not very helpful. But it's also because we know that if we get additional dollars, we're likely not going to get the entire 7.6 or 7.8. We might get 2 million, might get 1 million. So we want to get a sense of kind of where things fall for you as you think about budget chunks, if you will, or getting money back in chunks. Bucket 3 is medium priority. These are things that you're like, if we have extra money, we can think about removing these things from our budget reduction list. But they're not as urgent to restore, and it's acceptable if we cut them for not right now. Budget 4, similarly, but a little bit lower of a priority. Again, if we have additional monies, we can go ahead and think about restoring these things that you put in budget 4. And then the other really important category is bucket 5. And those are the things that you're like, these aren't a priority. And even if we get more money, let's not restore these things, right? It might be because strategically we're already seeing that these things are not really serving their purpose, and so we want to take advantage of the opportunity to reduce them now, or because we can live for a while. We can still serve our babies and move towards those 4 E's even without these particular things. And so if more money comes, let's go ahead and think about reducing or eliminating these particular services or programs. Next slide, please. This is a little bit more detailed explanation of the different buckets with some considerations that might be helpful for you as you're thinking about how you want to bucket each of the proposals that you're going to look at. I'm going to pause right there to see if folks have any clarifying questions around the buckets, because you're going to do this activity independently. And I said independently because you're not going to call a friend, Steve, Vicky. You're not going to be like, hey, what'd you put? I put this. We really ask that you reflect not even just your opinion, but remember, you're here to represent a different advisory group or constituency. So take the time to really kind of channel all those voices in PAC or all those voices in GSHAC or DLAC and say, how would they rank or prioritize this particular proposal? So now is my pause to see if there's any questions to clarify what the bucketing activity is or what each of these buckets represent. Oh, people did their homework. Come on. Go ahead on it. I told the board y'all was one of the, anyway, I told you that last time.
I like your revisions. This makes it much easier.
Thank you, Vicky. Listen, Vicky, I did it with the group today and they were like, no, change this. So, you know, again, continuous improvement. And even after this, y'all, you might have some recommendations how we can make it even better going forward. But thank you for working with us. Next slide, please. Got you. Regina. Unmute, Regina.
Yeah, I know it's a school district computer, so it takes a while. No offense.
Look at that. That was a jab.
I just want to be sure I'm on the right page. I just jumped in. I took over for Matt Meyer, so I just want to acknowledge that. And two, this assignment, is that the one you're referring to that was already emailed to us, or is going to be emailed to us?
So the proposals themselves were emailed to you, as well as an explanation of the buckets and an email last night. However, you're going to get a form momentarily if Emily, she's fast, y'all. So if Emily hasn't already sent it to you, she'll be sending it to you, and then you will actually put each proposal in a bucket.
Okay. I'm just getting questions on my end if this was from last night, but it sounds like Emily's going to send us something in a bit. Thank you.
She's going to send you, exactly. Last night was to get you ready to engage in what she's going to send you momentarily. So another learning that we had when we did this with some folks today and kind of tested it out was that, and Vicky's nodding because you probably saw it too. Like there's things on our proposals that are about generating revenue, for example, right? And the wording of the buckets didn't necessarily match up with what we were asking folks to consider. And so we actually, when you get the form, you're going to see we actually have a couple different ways of bucketing that I want to take you through. I want to start on the left-hand side. For things that are reductions or cost savings, the buckets pretty much remain the same of what I just described, right? Bucket one are those things that are high priority. Restore them first if you get money, Inikia. Bucket two, priority. If we get a little bit more money, let's go ahead and restore those things as well. Bucket three, it's medium. If we get extra money, we might consider those. Bucket four, even lower than the medium. Same thing if we get more money. And then bucket five, again, another important bucket is we don't want you to restore this, even if you get more dollars. Those are for reductions and cost savings. There's going to be some examples, I think about 5 or 6 of proposals that are about revenue generation. For those, you're going to notice on your form that the buckets have different language. So bucket one still means that thing is high priority, but what you're saying is we want you to implement this regardless, right? Not even about if we need extra dollars. This is a good idea and we want to implement it. An example of that might be that you might say, us increasing the costs for transportation for field trips, we want you to do that regardless because why not? Why not generate extra dollars to set aside? Because as I think it was Nicole who said, we've been in a year of terrible choices and we might have some more hard choices ahead. So we want to start to set aside some dollars and increase our revenues. That's bucket one. Implement this revenue generating strategy regardless of what the governor tells you next week. Bucket two is we want you to implement this revenue generation strategy or proposal only if we need the money. Like if we really need the money, please go ahead and start to charge for buses to and fro, to and school and from school. Again, bucket three and bucket four is kind of like they're not super important, they're not super helpful, but there's still a way for folks to kind of express their priorities. You say medium if you want us to consider it if the funds require or allow, and then low priority, same thing if the funds allow. But again, bucket five is really informative for us because for bucket five, if you put a revenue generating proposal in bucket five, you're saying do not implement this. You're saying I'm against the idea of raising, charging more for rent. And even if, we need some more money, I don't want us to do this. Can print that up? Sorry, you understand that? That makes sense? So again, the colors are the same, the buckets are similar, but there's going to be a slight nuance in the languages for those things that are revenue generators. We also recognize that there's a couple of things, y'all, that are on this list that they just have to happen. So, or they're just going to happen. So one of the things, if you recall, I think from phase 1 or phase 2, was that change in the teacher template and that BSTEP contribution. It was also another example was the projection for enrollment. Our enrollment's going to go up, and so that's more revenue. There's another one for phase 5 that's about recouping some dollars for, I can't remember which bill it was, but some taxes from the city, right? Some of those things we just have to do. And so we didn't want to waste your time saying put these in a bucket. For those items, you'll see that it says bucket 1, high priority, because they're either required or they're necessary. I doubt that any of you are going to say, yeah, we know we're going to have more kids, but let's not count those kids, right, towards our target. So why play games? So you'll notice there's a few of those like that where it's only one option. We still want you to click that option because we want to know that you saw it and you recognize that it is something that we're going to do regardless because it's either required or necessary. And so That's the slight nuances between the different types of proposals that are in the that are on the form. Nicole?
I'd be remiss to not say, as a member of P&O, that the teacher template shift is not, I don't know. I don't know if it, well, it might be required to close the budget deficit
Right.
and necessary to close the budget, but it's not like legally binding. And so we hope as a P&O that in the near term that ratio will be reduced back to current levels so that BSEP tax measure can continue to fund all the services that we do today.
Yes, ma'am. Received. Thank you for you did good. See, that's her repping that committee, because that is a very important kind of asterisk, if you will, for that particular example. And it's not legally required right now, Nicole. It is necessary. So we appreciate the P&O agreeing to do that. But yeah, it is an example of something that we might not continue going forward. But you're bucketing it as one right now is really because for this particular progress towards a target is something that's necessary. Okay, Emily. Are forms out?
Yes, the forms have been sent to all 17 voters.
Okay, 17 voters, listen very closely. You are going to identify what group you're in. It is going to record your email, so please make sure you're allowed to do so. And then it's going to go through, first, it's going to go through each phase. For each phase, it's going to show you the things that SBAC advanced. You're going to bucket those. And then it's going to show you those things that we talked about today where SBAC was not ready. Because remember, we did the straw poll the same day that we're asking you to bucket them. So don't worry about that. Don't get caught up, right? Just know that we've tried to group them first by those things that we've talked about at length that you've advanced immediately. And then for those things that some of you all had more questions about. It does that same pattern for every single phase. It does the ones that were advanced and the ones that we're calling other because you needed more information. And then you get phase 5 in one big chunk. And that's only because phase 5, again, you did the straw poll today, the same meeting that you're going to be bucketing. And so we didn't have time to sort them by things that you advanced versus things that you needed more information about. It is really important that none of our voting members get off this call without confirming that you've received your Google form so that you can bucket. It's also really important that none of our voting members get off this call without understanding that my ask is that you complete and submit this completed form to us. I would love to say by tonight, but at the very latest by tomorrow afternoon, noon, please, because we, again, are using this information to really inform some important decisions that I and my team have to make. And because we don't want life to happen and then you forget. Vicki?
Yeah, I noticed on the poll it has eliminate personnel commission supervisor. And I thought we weren't allowed to do that or that was removed. I just wanted clarification.
Yep, thank you. That's on there, Vicki, because that was one of our recommendations and it was an opportunity for us to make any changes. However, we don't want to make changes, but there is an update for that one. And I do want to allow, Sam, are you here? My team is falling off. Vicki.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Sam. Sam, can you give us a really quick update on the how the Personnel Commission has been working with us to try to get towards that?
Yeah, so the Personnel Commission held a special meeting last Thursday and gave us an alternative idea that would make changes. It wouldn't be the amount of savings that we've recorded here, but it would be a significant amount, close to 69,000. And so, which is more than the 15,000 that they originally were thinking of. And so we are making progress, but nothing is solid or solidified yet. So what I would do is, if you're voting on that one, would be putting it where you would want to put any changes that we make to the Personnel Commission staffing.
Oh, look at that. Folks are getting their homework. People are excited. So again, remember, you're going to complete this by tomorrow at noon, preferably tonight while it's still fresh in your head. But I understand there's tons of celebrations. I'm headed to one now, so I know folks might not have time tonight to take care of it. You can reach out to Ms. Vivian or email me if you have additional questions or find yourself stuck. But I do think the form is pretty self-explanatory. I am going to ask Ms. Vivian to advance to slide 27, and then I'm going to take Dan's question. Dan? Hi, Dan.
I'm just looking through this, and I know you said that it doesn't matter what we say because we have no choice on bucket one.
Dan. Oh, say it right, Dan. I did not say that.
Well, I mean, anyway, so I'm just the enrollment projections
Mhm.
don't net out the costs that are associated with that,
Mhm.
or they don't seem to. So I think it's a little misleading, not that it really matters because it doesn't matter what we say. But
Yeah, we're gonna have a problem if we keep saying that. I did not say
Right.
that. Tina. I said for those particular things, it's not that it doesn't matter what you say, but if there is a significant cost savings or something that we have to do to recoup expenses, et cetera, we're gonna likely do that thing anyway. And we
okay,
don't want to give you.
I'll accept your
Thank you, Dan.
restatement of what you originally said, rather than my misstatement of what you originally said. In any case, it's not really a net increase of that. It is more revenue, but there's going to have to be costs that are associated with that. So just comment.
Because the go ahead, got it, Paul.
Sorry, Dan, if you look in phase 2, it has the impact of the teacher template. It also has a reduction, the increased number of teachers we're gonna have to hire, and it also has the impact on revenue. So these are things that we will do when we're constructing the budget in terms of the most recent information. So these are kind of built in to the budget development process.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Enjoy your celebrations.
We're going to celebrate, you guys, but we want to invite you to a celebration. You might have already gotten an invite. I'm not sure, but on the 29th, we're doing an end of the year celebration for our various advisory committees. You should have received an invitation, but you know, things happen, get lost in the mail these days. The mail's been, have you all been noticing? Anyway, that's another conversation. So wanted to make sure you all mark your calendar for May 29th at 6 p.m. right here next door in the Oxford Courtyard. We're going to have just a nice opportunity to be in person and in community together and I was gonna say and touch each other, but I probably shouldn't say that, but just give hugs and high fives and just be like live and in living color in 3D. We want to just say we want to appreciate you all for your time. You have a lot of time, but also for your thoughtfulness and your talent. You know, there's still more work for us to do. We know we have some upcoming conversations, digging deeper into college readiness data and thinking about consultants, but we also feel like we've had some really good thinking here, and some of the ways that we've moved towards our target we would not have been able to do without you, without your push, and without your idea. So we want to have you to come up. Now listen, it's nothing fancy because I mean you saw the budget, nothing too fancy, but we'll be together, and that's really all that matters. So I wanted to make sure that you all see the invite. Next slide, please. And then there's been a little talk, because you all just can't get enough of us and these budget conversations about scheduling. That is totally wrong. Sorry. Ms. Vivian, can you refresh about us scheduling another meeting? And so we wanted to propose that we have another meeting on, am I correct, Pauline? June 4th? I'm sorry, next week, next Wednesday. So next Wednesday is the 28th. And we were thinking about doing it on the 20th. I'm looking at my team's chat while I do this. On the 28th at 3, because we do have a personnel commission at 4:30. And so we are wanting to come back and possibly share with you all, not just the outcomes of the homework that you're doing in terms of bucketing, but also the outcome of the straw poll. But I think those bucketing outcomes are probably the most important. But then also we will share with you whatever we've learned in terms of the implications from the governor's budget update.
So I refreshed and it didn't show the 28th. So is that the day we're going with?
That was me, Miss Vivian. I'm sorry. I was trying
no
to
problem.
change it in real time. So May 28th at 3 p.m. is what we are proposing.
3 to 4:30?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll send the invite out tonight.
And then Vicky said, please send the invite. Yes, we're going to send the invite out tonight. And we know it won't work for everyone. And again, it won't be a decision-making or a voting engagement. It'll just be for us to share the outcomes. If everybody does their homework, 17 folks, as well as an update from the governor. Woo! Okay, friends, our next board meeting is actually tomorrow. And at that board meeting, there's going to be an update and an overview of all the work we've been doing with regards to our extended learning or after school programs. And so I invite you all, because just like budget, that's been a very very big topic of conversation amongst BUSD community and family. So I invite you to come out and listen. And again, want to remind you of the opportunity to be in community in person on the 29th at 6 p.m. for our end of the year celebration. I am headed to the AHA graduation and senior awards night. I'm sure you all are heading somewhere fun and exciting too. I wish you a wonderful evening. Don't forget to do your homework. Appreciate y'all. And we'll see you on the 28th at 3 p.m. Dan, I'm gonna watch what I say because Dan, you know I care what you think.
I wasn't saying that you didn't care. It was what I think. It was what we all don't have an option to.
I feel you. I appreciate y'all. Have a good night, you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Miss Cedric.
Bye.
Bye, Guy.
See, Samantha, I'm almost done in the ER. You were right.
You picked a good time.
You're right. Thank you.
She cut her finger. She cut her finger at home.
And my doctor's right here. See? Say hi, doctor.
Bye, you guys.
Bye. Bye, Mildred.